Good morning, 7th grade. Yes, good Monday morning. Beginning of another week for you all. I'm making this video on Friday. Bear with me. We are now starting week 2 of the Life of Christ curriculum. I hope you're liking it as much as I like it. Sorry, I was not as prepared as I thought. Bailey, grab my Bible real quick.
Where is it?
I think it's on the shoe thing over there. Anyway, so yes, welcome to Crazy Town in my house. Anyway, this week we're actually going to start talking about Christmas. Now, thing to keep in mind about Christmas is here in America, we have it all out of whack, and I'm as guilty as anybody else of this. But if you look at the Bible, there are only 2 books of the Bible that actually talk about the events that we call Christmas, about the birth of Christ. Matthew and Luke. Mark and John don't really mention it. John starts by saying that Jesus came to live among us, but he doesn't talk about Mary, Joseph, any of that kind of stuff. It's only Matthew and Luke that talk about that. And that both of those only spend like 1 or 2 chapters on it. On the other hand, the last week of Jesus' life is where it is in all 4 Gospels, and it spent a lot of that Gospel. Like half of each of the Gospels, a fourth to half of each of the Gospels, focuses on the last week of Jesus' life. And we have it backwards. You know, we spend so much time and money and decorating and everything on Christmas, and not as much on Easter. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody else. I mean, you all have seen part of my house. You know how many Christmas decorations I have, and there's even more Christmas decorations upstairs, plus a tree in each one of the bedrooms upstairs. I think the last time we counted, we have like 12, 13 tubs of Christmas decorations, and we have like 1 of Easter. So yes, we have it backwards, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. So, this week, I won't make a video for every day. You can do most of this yourself, but it'll be the same thing. You'll read the Life of Christ either in your book or online, and then you'll do the quiz. Of course, it's open book, open Bible quiz. It's just answering the 10-ish questions. The Life of Christ focuses on what's written in Luke, as far as Jesus' birth and the events leading up to his birth, which we already read that together right after Thanksgiving, part of our trying to read through the book of Luke, a chapter a day, kind of, leading up to Christmas Eve. I want to focus on what it says in Matthew and kind of how to piece those 2 together. So I'm going to read some out of Matthew. Matthew 1 starts with the genealogy of Jesus. I am not reading the entire genealogy of Jesus. I'd butcher half the names. But Matthew, remember, is writing for a Jewish audience. Genealogy is hugely important to the Jews. It would be very important for them to be able to know who they descended from, which one of the 12 tribes they descended from. And there's a lot of Old Testament prophecies that have to do with where Jesus would be born and who he would be a descendant of. So Matthew is using this genealogy to say, hey guys, he fulfills all of that. He is in the line of Judah. He is in the line of David. He fulfills all of those Old Testament prophecies about where he would be born, who he would be born to. Then starts with 1:18. This is how the birth of Jesus Christ came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be with child through the Holy Spirit. Now, it's in Luke that we learn about the angel coming to Mary and saying that you would be with child, and her leaving and going and seeing Elizabeth and all of that. Here it just says that she's pledged to be married to Joseph, but she was found to be with child through the Holy Spirit. It doesn't tell anything about the angel visiting her in Matthew. What it does say is, because Joseph, her husband, was a righteous man and did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. I just had a light bulb moment here. I have never read this anywhere else. This is literally off the top of my head, so this could be totally wrong, but it makes sense to me. If you think about it, if you remember, the way Luke got all of his information to write his gospel is he interviewed the people. he couldn't interview Joseph. We believe Joseph had already died by the time Luke's gospel would have been written. We believe Joseph had already died by the time Jesus was crucified. So that might be why Luke doesn't have any mention of Joseph, like Matthew does, because Luke couldn't have interviewed Joseph. Just kind of a, literally, off the top of my head, dots that were just suddenly got connected. Have no clue if that's right, but makes sense to me. Anyway, all this took place to fulfill. Matthew is writing, talking about how it all fulfills the Old Testament prophecies. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded and took Mary home as his wife. But he had no union with her until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. Now, the two songs I am attaching is Mary Did You Know, which I've already attached that once. I love that song, but last time I did the classic country, Winona and I think it's Winona, Kenny Rogers, because, well, I love classic country. This time I'm attaching the Pentatonics version of it because I love that version too. But I'm also attaching the song, What a Wondrous Way to Save the World. No, What a Strange Way to Save the World. Mary Did You Know is, of course, talking about Mary. What a Strange Way to Save the World is written more from Joseph's perspective. And so I love those two songs, and I think they're both great songs that kind of give you both Mary, Joseph, as far as talking about the birth of Jesus. Then Matthew 2 talks about the wise men, which that we'll talk about later on this week. One other thing I want to point out. So give me just a second to flip myself. Actually, to flip the phone. You knew what I meant. This is the Life of Christ actual website. I know at least one of you are having a hard time getting on the website, so I'm going to try to show it to you here. At the bottom of the lesson you're supposed to read today is maps. Even though I'm the history teacher, I'm not always the hugest map person, but this one I think is really important. Mary and Joseph were from Nazareth, up here in the area of Galilee. Jerusalem is where, of course, the temple is. Bethlehem is where they had to go back for the census to be taken and where Jesus was born. Hill country of Judea is where Elizabeth and Zachariah lived. So when Mary left from up here where she lived to go down to see Elizabeth and Zachariah, that would have been a pretty good trek down there to see them. And then she went back. And then when it was closer to time for the baby to be born, they had to go all the way down here, which would have been an even longer trip. There's a movie, The Nativity. It came out about 2 years after the Passion of Christ. So whenever that was, it's been a while. It's a good movie that's pretty biblically accurate. They add some stuff to it because that's what Hollywood does. One of the things they add to it is they add to the trip that Mary and Joseph would have taken, because the Bible just tells us they went from Nazareth down here to Bethlehem. And so they add some stuff about what it might have been like for Mary and Joseph. And what they add is historically, biblically correct. And one of the things they also show is they show them going through Jerusalem and stopping at the temple and going through the temple on the way down to Bethlehem. Well, if you look at the map, that's actually pretty accurate. There's a very good chance they would have gone through Jerusalem. Being Jews, heading from here to here, Jerusalem being on the way, they probably would have stopped there. And it was kind of Hollywood's way of kind of throwing in what's going to happen in the future, because it shows them selling stuff at the temple, which is we'll talk about much later. Jesus came in and overthrew those tables where they were selling stuff. And so it's kind of interesting to think that, maybe Mary and Joseph did go by and see all of that. So, I highly suggest you watch that movie if you haven't seen it. It's a good one. Kind of gives you some stuff to think about. So, I will see you whenever I make the next video. I haven't decided when that's going to be, but it probably won't be tomorrow. So, have a great rest of the Monday.